Mmm.
Hi, and welcome back for a special edition of Hot Off the Press with the 4 blank of the apocalypse. As we bring many disasters to you this evening, as with the first intro, let's see who all is bringing their particular flavors of disaster in for the evening. So, Keith, I'll let you give a quick intro on who you are, and we'll come back around.
I'm Keith R.A. DeCandido, and this is my wonderful wife, Wrenn Simms. Together, we are Whisperwood LLC, the publisher and also the editors of the anthology, and we also wrote 2 of the stories in the 4 Who's-the-Jiggers of the Apocalypse. I am also a writer of many, many things, an editor of a bunch of other things, and probably I'm going to write more things. So,
the things are the things.
Yeah.
Adam.
Yes, my name's Adam-Troy Castro, and I've written the things that Keith did not write. You can narrow it down a little bit, but that's basically it.
Randee.
Hi, I'm Randee Dawn, and I have written a story for this wonderful anthology called The Fifth Horseman. You know, just to be contrary.
Gordon.
Hi, I'm Gordon Linzner. I'm the founder of Space and Time magazine and the book line as well, which are now handled by other people. And I've written a bunch of short stories and a bunch of novels, and this was one of the more fun ones to do.
David.
Hi, I'm David Mack. I wrote The Apocalypse Will Be Televised, which is the lead-off story for this anthology. And I'm the writer of a whole bunch of different stuff, a lot of it for Star Trek in many different media.
Jody Lynn.
Hi, I'm Jody Lynn Nye. I write science fiction and fantasy, most of it with a humorous bent. And I am also the coordinating judge of the Writers' Future Contest, and I run the 2-day Writers' Workshop at DragonCon. And to nobody's surprise whatsoever, my story was called Apocalypse. As some of my cats will come through here.
Oh well, you know, it's not a show till we have at least one cat up here. Aaron.
Hi, I'm Aaron Rosenberg. I write novels, short stories, children's books, role-playing games, whatever people pay me for. I actually wrote 2 stories in this book. I've got both blank slates, and I wrote the bonus story of the apocalypse, putting Doom on pause, which Keith almost killed me over the title for.
I love it.
I did not. I just groaned a lot.
I loved it.
I'm just surprised he actually paid.
We want to keep our friends. So.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Hildy.
Hi, I'm Hildy Silverman. I also used to publish Space and Time magazine. I took it over from Gordon. I write a lot of short stories, a lot of different genres for a lot of different anthologies, including this one where I wrote the 4 Bachelors of the Apocalypse.
And Mike.
Hi, I'm Michael Ventrella. I write humorous adventure stories and also edit a bunch of anthologies as well. And I'm a lawyer, so my story is called The 4 Lawyers of the Apocalypse. Well, it's not really called that, but it's about the 4 Lawyers of the Apocalypse.
Which we know it'll be the attorneys that bring the end to everything. So, Keith, Wrenn, what made y'all come up with this particular anthology?
Well, it actually had its genesis in a story I wrote back in, I think, 2011? No, earlier than that, 2004. I was asked to do a story for an anthology that never actually got published called 44 Clowns, 11 Stories of the 4 Clowns of the Apocalypse. And I wrote a story called Behold a White Tricycle. And it never got published. It eventually did get published in a short story collection of mine called Without a License. But Wrenn and I were talking at some bar at some convention. They all start to blend after a while. And the notion of alternatives to the equestrians of the end of the world came up, and people started throwing ideas around and saying, hey, I'd write that story. And probably because we were drinking, we thought, hey, we can form our own small press and publish it ourselves.
Given that we do have the skill sets between both of us edit, he writes, this is my first ever writing a story for publication.
But you also do production.
I do production work. I do layout and all of that. So I've done that for other small presses. So like we had the skills. It was a matter of.
And we also both contributed, as Wrenn said, she did one. Her story is entitled
"Your Apocalypse will be serviced by the next available representative." So I got the customer service reps.
And I did the 4 septuagenarians of the apocalypse. The title of the story is "What Do You Want From Me? I'm Old." And it was actually inspired sort of by true events. There is a bodega near where we live in the Bronx where old people tend to just sort of sit on the bench and hang out a lot. So I did a story about it.
Oh, it was been referred to in the area as that's the
senior center in the neighborhood.
In the neighborhood, yeah.
So that's us.
So,
and then we invited all these lunatics as well as a bunch of others, and they can tell you about their story.
the number of things that start out with, we were in the bar at a convention.
Yeah, one of those. There was alcohol. There were authors in a corner in a bar.
We were doomed.
I'll write something for that.
Yeah.
That's basically what happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the reason we're putting together an entirely other anthology, but I will not talk about that at this moment. So, do you guys want to talk a little bit about your stories? So, Keith, I'll start with you. Do you want to talk just a little bit about your particular contribution?
That was, I mean, I pretty much said all I want to say without spoiling anything.
Right.
Like I said, it actually, it was originally intended to be a much more humorous story than it actually wound up being. It wound up being much more of almost a horror story, and certainly very elegiac to a degree I did not expect. But I think that wound up for the better, and it still has its humor in it because I wrote it, and therefore there will be humor.
So, Wrenn, what led you to talk about the esteemed customer service representative?
I dropped it in the middle of the conversation about possibly doing this book that I want the customer service reps, and then I had to write it, and then I had to write it, and then I had to have somebody bug me to write it.
Yes,
I ended up writing it, so it got done.
And she did research and everything.
I did research and everything because I'm not a customer service rep person. I haven't talked to people who are customer service reps. And I had to get it right. I knew how it was the case of knowing how it was going to end and many starts to get to there. I'd rather write essays. They actually stay in their lane.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, that's all I want to say.
So I have one question. Are any of them a digital customer service representative where you have to press one first?
No, they're all live. You call in, you get put on hold a lot though.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah, but at least you talk to somebody first. I mean, that's a step up.
Yeah. True.
Well, that's why it's fiction.
Exactly.
Yes, indeed.
And that's why it's apocalyptic, because you actually were going to get a hold of 4 people in the same call.
Then it's definitely the end of the world. Yeah.
It's definitely the end of the world. So, Adam, what about your contribution?
Well, I want to say first that I could have done customer service because that was 17 long years of my life. I could have done that, and so I felt a little thrill of familiarity when I read Wrenn's story. But that's another unfortunate discussion. I did the 4 procrastinators of the apocalypse, which I wanted to make sure the apocalypse never happened because it was a project that they were going to get done one of these days and never would.
Are they writers?
I didn't say that. Actually, I don't recall if there's a writing joke in the story. The story is very short. It's only about it's only 1.5 pages in the anthology, and it's one of the stories that I did in less than 10 minutes because, just pretty much used up every joke, and then I said bye, and that's it. And
it's a living.
It was funnier than I remembered it being. So I not looking at it for 1.5 years, I just said, "Oh, this doesn't suck completely." So,
Randee, how about you? What's your contribution here?
So the Fifth Horseman allowed me, or gave me the opportunity at least, to go back into writing about musicians and bands and rock and roll, which is something that I've done with some unpublished novels that are still back out there. And I love that milieu. I used to be a music journalist, and so I love writing about musicians doing their thing. And I've interviewed a ton of indie musicians over the years, and I love them going out on the road with their broken down van, playing games like What's That Smell? It sort of allowed me to get back into those memories again, because I started out doing a lot of writing about musicians and bands and fairies and Irish stuff. Maybe that will come out one day. But in the meantime, I just kind of dove into that. I didn't necessarily have a destination, except that I wanted them all to represent a member of the four horse people of the apocalypse. But at the same time, I didn't want them to necessarily know what they were doing. They had kind of been conscripted into this as the world began running down. I liked the idea of, the apocalypse that comes with a whimper, not a bang, and how we sort of slowly back ourselves off the stage. And when that happens, you need somebody to play the final number, right? You got to play everybody off. So, that's the basic structure of the story. And just had a real thrill writing it. And the title actually comes from a song title of a favorite band of mine. There's a band called Prefab Sprout, and they have a song called The Fifth Horseman. And in that song, they talk about love is the fifth horseman of the apocalypse. And I wanted to sort of work that idea in there somewhere. And then I'm not going to give away more than that at the moment, but since I named the story after this band's song, the guy who wrote it, his name is Paddy McAloon, and he's amazing. He's a terrific songwriter that is not as well known in the US as in the UK. And so I dedicated the story to him. At the very end, it says, for Paddy M. And that's just me sort of giving him a little wave from across the pond. We've never met. He does not know me. There's no way. It's unlikely he'll ever see the story. But I feel like I have sent out a little bit of tribute into the world. So yeah, I'm very pleased with this story. This story is kind of my heart.
Well, in the end of the Fifth Element too. Remember,
I should point out that Randee is one of three authors who chose music as the theme, which was kind of nifty because all three, Randee did hers, Mary Fan did the four opera singers of the apocalypse, and Russ Colchimero did the four drummers of the apocalypse. So these were three wildly different takes. And the only thing they really had in common was a tremendous love of music that all three of them have. And it really shone through in all of them, even though the stories were all very different. And I love the fact that they all had different takes on it, and yet still that love of music came through in all of them.
The good news is that at least the apocalypse will have a soundtrack.
Yes.
Precisely. And it will rock.
Yes.
Gordon, how about your contribution?
Okay. I had a hard time deciding. I came up with 4 or 5 different ideas, and then I decided I'll just use them all. So I basically ran a contest in which we have 4 people interviewing groups of 4 to see who's going to run the apocalypse. And that was a lot of fun. I slipped a couple bands in there too, Keith.
Yes,
but
did.
they weren't the major thing. Major thing was, well, I don't want to spoil it. But the fact is, I had about 25 characters in the book. A lot of fun in just a few thousand pages.
A few thousand pages? Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah. I also decided to make the title complex too. I called it The Fate of the Final Four, a Fatalist Fable.
Because alliteration is always to be used.
Yeah.
Yeah.
David, how about you?
It took me about 2 months to come up with an idea after Keith first contacted me, I think, which was back around May of 2000. So it took me till July to actually come up with it. Of 2020, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, you said 2000. It wasn't. We did not conceive this 23 years ago.
That's
it's in
true.
the 2000s.
It only seems that
feels,
long.
yeah, feels like that. Yeah,
feels that long.
I'm still doing 2000.
Yeah.
Yes. So I finally settled on the 4 development executives of the apocalypse, specifically Hollywood development executives of the apocalypse. Any similarity to my own frustrating meetings with Star Trek producers or other TV entities is entirely, well, I'd like to say coincidental, but I'm not sure that's legal. But the frustration is real.
The attorney at the end.
Yeah, the pain is real. So yeah, essentially, I took the actual 4 horsemen, the classic ones, and I simply gave them a meeting with four dreaded Hollywood development executives, proving that nobody is immune to notes.
Jody Lynn?
Well, when Keith and Wrenn came to me and said, we would like you to write a story for this, it took me about 1 second to say cats. I will put cats in this story. And I was very flattered when Keith got in touch and said, I could tell without reading the byline that this was yours. So it is full of terrible puns. Cats are the worldwide religion, although different sects for different people. Our hero is a devout Catholic. And of course, he is worshiping in a cathedral when the four cats of the apocalypse come in and say, we are being insufficiently adored, and you're all dead if you don't do something better. Leaving my hero to come up with something that, well, saves the world.
Averts catastrophe?
Yes.
What catastrophe?
That was in there too.
Yeah, of course it was.
Save it from the
And I think
catastrophe.
every cat, anybody who's owned a cat can get behind the whole insufficiently adored thing.
Well,
Yes,
you know,
they have a liturgy that, of course, the faithful recite. For I was hungry and you fed me, for I was cold and you sheltered me, for I was bored and you amused me. That's
The liturgy, yeah.
Liturgy. Yes.
Literally, yeah.
Yep. You're beginning to get the idea there.
Liturgies.
all right, Aaron, you've got a couple of contributions here.
Overachiever.
Yeah, well, you know me. Yeah, I did two. I feel like I was at the original bar conversation. I
You
think.
probably
I
were,
believe-
I
yeah.
think Jen and I were sitting there.
I believe you were.
And
It was
yeah,
either
so
a far point or a shore leaf. I don't
yeah,
know.
so we were already like, well, among the first people who said, yeah, we'll do stories, and I'm not going to say what mine are the four blank of, because that's the fun of the story. But it was very visually based. I immediately, like the minute they mentioned the idea, I had an image in my head of where it was going to go, and then it was just a matter of getting there. And then for the Kickstarter for it, I offered up the possibility of doing an original story written sort of custom for whoever bought that pledge reward. And so the person who picked it decided on the four crazy cat ladies of the apocalypse. Hence the title, Putting Doom on Pause, PAWS. So, which I had, yes, as Dave gets it, which I had way too much fun writing.
Very funny.
That was a story that I sat down to write and immediately knew exactly where it was going to go and how it was going to sound. And yeah, that was a lot of fun.
The person who bought that had very specific things she wanted to see in the story.
Yep.
And Aaron dutifully put them all in, and it worked beautifully. And then we asked her permission if it was okay if we put it in the book, because it was up to her. It was her story, and she agreed. So we got an extra story out of Aaron in the book.
Well, and we can probably all really blame cats. Will, at least in some way, shape, or form, be responsible for the apocalypse, even if it's just by knocking the wrong thing over at the wrong place at the wrong time.
Mm-hmm.
One of mine almost turned into a rug today because he knocked my computer offline. Computer off. Literally off power.
Yeah.
Oops.
That was. Do you want to mention what Jen did, Aaron?
Yeah. So my wife Jennifer also contributed to the anthology, and she did if I remember correctly, the four PTA moms of the apocalypse. Having been the treasurer of the PTA at our kids' school for many, many years, she knew way too much about that subject.
And it's very real.
Yeah.
That's a very real feel in that one.
The real
much like Dave's story, I think the pain was real.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
In other words, this is one of those things that you can now lease out to every school system at the beginning of the PTA manual for how to prepare to be on the board.
No.
That's a very good idea. I like that one.
We have another story in the anthology by a friend who did the four lunch ladies of the apocalypse.
That was Danielle Ackley McPhail did that one.
Oh,
And she actually has turned that into a franchise. She has done at least one other Lunch Ladies of the Apocalypse story since then, and plans to do more. So we've created a monster.
Yeah, she likes their characters just too much. So
I can see now a collection coming.
Yeah.
From the school cafeteria. It's just the school pizza. Hildy, What about you? What did you bring to us?
So I went with the four Bachelors of the Apocalypse. I was trying to think of what would be the most bizarre mashup of the apocalypse and the most ludicrous. And I saw a commercial
knocking things over.
Yes, I saw a commercial for The Bachelor, and I was like, winner. So yes, it's basically a Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome kind of world with challenges, except with the goal of an actual match, much like The Bachelor. And a lot of it is sort of my meta commentary on how apocalyptic movies and TV shows and many books have a similar aesthetic where all of a sudden everyone's wearing studded leather and they change their names to something bizarre. And it's all kind of the same in the future. Like everybody's vision of the apocalypse seems to be very similar to the Mad Max world. And at least one of my characters sort of makes meta commentary about that along the way. Like, why are we doing this? Why are we all dressing like idiots? Why do we talk like this? Why do we rename ourselves? So he's very put upon, but he is forced by his horde, because everyone is divided into hordes, to fight for the hand of the princess of the garbage heap. And wackiness ensues as he goes through these trials and somehow survives some. I won't say if he survives all, but he survives some, at least, by his wits and by dumb luck.
I particularly like all the factions where they all put apostrophes in their names.
Yes.
Yes. His name was Stanley, but now he has to call himself Stanley with a ST apostrophe because that's how his horde does it, and it's required.
Does he present anything? Oh, never mind.
Sorry.
Stan Lee joke. Never mind.
Okay.
No, but he makes plenty of cameos.
Yeah.
So, Mike, since you're going to round it out, how did you bring about the end of it all?
Well, my story is not the last story, so don't get that idea. Originally, I was going to do the Marx Brothers because I thought the four Marx Brothers would be wonderful because I'm such a big Marx Brothers fan. But about 12 years ago, I did a story for the Heroes in Hell series with the Marx Brothers. It was called Hell I Must Be Going. And I said, well, I don't want to repeat myself. And then I thought, well, I should do the four lawyers, of course. So the story has to do with the devil showing up to gather the four horsemen like he's supposed to do to bring about the apocalypse. But the four horsemen have gotten so bored waiting for the devil to show up that they've decided they can accomplish their deeds much better as lawyers. It's much easier to do all these evil things if you're a lawyer. And so the devil has to convince them, and he has a little bit of trouble because, lawyers don't like being told what to do.
The question is, will the devil pay their bill rate? Well, yeah, well, and does he get a discount?
Does he get no? They don't want to do it. That's the point. He's got to convince them, and they're going to say, no, we're not going to do it. And you'll find out why if you read the story.
Mike also has one of my favorite titles in the book, which is Horseman, 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 and Horseman Attorneys at Law.
So, Keith, are there any others you want to kind of highlight? Because I know there's a lot of other well-known contributors or well-known offenders, as the case may be.
Yes, indeed. Well, we had Jonathan Mayberry did a story that actually takes place in his Kagan the Damned fantasy world. It was basically the four swords of the apocalypse, and it was four people going on a quest in the setting of Jonathan's fantasy world, and that was a fun little insight into those characters. Shauna McGuire did the four bugs of the apocalypse, which if you are an insectophobe, do not read that story.
That was a great story. Ooh,
very effective.
Oh yeah,
yes.
yeah. One of the fun things about this is that we ran the gamut of both humor and horror. Sean's was a particularly nasty one. Derek Tyler Attico did a really good one, which it's called The Four Stages of the Apocalypse, and I honestly cannot do it justice by describing it, except to say that it covers a time frame that starts in the 19th century in the Old West and goes all the way to the far future, and involves a lot of different things, but mostly racism. And it's damnably effective. Derek, among other things, Derek is the person who's wrote the recently released autobiography of Benjamin Sisko. And he just did an amazing job with this story. Michael Jan Friedman surprised all of us. None of you, I think, anybody's familiar with Mike.
He surprised himself.
And he surprised himself. Yeah. Mike is not a horror writer. I don't think Mike has ever written a horror story before this. He didn't intend it to be a horror story, and it's actually an incredibly effective horror story. It's about the four Harshmans of the apocalypse, which is four guys named Harshmen. And it was supposed to be this silly story about these four cousins who all, go on this retreat, and wackiness ensues. And it turned into this really just vicious bit of horror, which was tremendous fun. Mm-hmm. Gerard Warner did the Four Squirrels of the Apocalypse, which is another one that we thought was going to be funny and really wasn't.
But a very effective one too.
Yeah,
but it was not
a horror story. And then we have was it Four Entrees, more or less? What did
James D. McDonald did another story with a character that he'd used before, and it was called The Four Entrees, and there's a double meaning there, and that's another one that really we can't do justice to. You have to read it, but it takes place in the 1930s, and it's a very effective period piece.
It's very subtle, and you look at it and you see it as you go along. What he's trying to get at. We can't say any more about it because I don't want to give away anything, but I love that one.
Yeah.
And then we have the Four Angels.
Megan Mackey did the Four Angels of the Apocalypse. Laura Ann Gilman did the Four, I guess, Doorways of the Apocalypse. That's another one that it's almost a prose poem in a lot of ways, and Laura Ann's story is very effective, but hard to describe. Dayton Ward and Kevin Dillmore did the Four Preppers of the Apocalypse. This is one,
not preppy. Prepper.
No, prepper. Yes, apocalypse preppers of the apocalypse. This one was pure humor. It was as only Dayton and Kevin can provide. It was an absolutely hilarious story, and it also had, when I read an excerpt from it on Facebook, I think we lost a Kickstarter supporter because there was cussing in it. And they were very offended.
God, they didn't see mine, huh?
Yeah, right.
The world shall end with clean language.
Yeah, the Dayton and Kevin story also takes place in South Florida, so yeah, there's we're not dealing
with the love of Darn Montresor.
Yes, basically. Well, David Gerald did the Four Course Men, which was the four. How would we describe that?
I don't know.
That's another one that you really have to read it.
It is pure David Gerald.
Yeah, it's sort of it's.
I wish you could explain them more. I really do.
It's kind of the four corporate executives of the apocalypse, as opposed to David did the David our dear Mr. Mack here did the Hollywood executives. These were more corporate executives, and kind of there was marketing involved, and it was very scary.
That is scary.
Well, you got to sell people on the apocalypse.
David Mack had puns in his words. No, there were.
Yeah. And
that's about most of them. Yeah. There's 28 total.
Oh, Gil Martin did the Four Librarians of the Apocalypse.
Overdue.
It's called Overdue. It's the shortest title in the book, as opposed to I think Mike Ventrella's was the longest. It's okay. And Gail did a wonderful story about librarians, and also and it is also a Shaggy Dog story. I think Jody would be very proud of the fact that it all builds towards a spectacularly terrible pun.
Yay!
Patrick Thomas did the Four Karens of the Apocalypse, which was very depressingly timely. And sort of going down the list. I should have had the book in front of me, but that would have involved preparation.
I'll hand it to you.
Thanks, Gordon.
Thank you. I'll just take it now.
Yeah. But I think that's just about everybody who was in.
Yeah. Well, if we missed anybody, there'll be a couple of surprises left in the title.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that was it. How can I forget? It's on the cover. Bob Greenberger did the Four Cheerleaders of the Apocalypse.
That's why there's a cheerleader on the.
Yes, and Bob has been teaching high school for the last several years, and as with several of the stories mentioned here, it is drawn from real life.
Did you mention Peter David?
Oh yeah, Peter David. Thank you. Peter David did a story called "A Priest, a Rabbi, a Shinsoku, and an Imam Walk In Too." I think it was at least
the title was longer than mine there.
Yeah, I think it may actually be longer than yours. Yeah, and it was actually inspired by your anthology, Mike. The three time travelers walk into, and it's basically the apocalypse is brought about by four religious leaders who stoke the fires of religious arguments, shall we say? It's one that's almost depressingly timely.
Yeah.
Well, at least we're giving reading material for the apocalypse.
Indeed.
It was a lot of fun.
Well, just in time for the holidays, of course.
Yes.
So, perfect gift to give those friends and family you like or don't.
400. It's 375 pages. So yeah,
and 29 stories.
29 stories.
It's good value.
Yeah, some good bang for your buck there. And it is available at all whatever your online book dealer of choice is in trade paperback or ebook. And we are more than. And if you see any of us at a convention, you might be able to get your hands on a copy. Certainly, if you see me and Wrenn at a convention, we will have.
Or at least get your copy signed.
Yeah.
You can always order one from us directly too.
Yes.
Well, before we get out of here, let's make sure everybody knows where to find everybody. And of course, anything else they need to be stacking up on that holiday to be read pile. And because, well, we're ending the world anyway, so I'm going to go in reverse order because I can. So, Mike, you're up first.
Oh, I'm easy
That
to
never
find.
happens.
MichaelAventrella.com, where you can check all my books out, read the first couple chapters, and I write fiction, nonfiction, and I edit lots of anthologies.
Hildy?
HildySilverman.com. All the anthologies I'm in are listed there, as well as my novella, which is a cryptid novella called Invasive Species, and links to how to get everything. And you'll probably see me on the convention circuit if you're on the convention circuit anywhere in the Northeast, because I go to a lot of them.
Aaron?
You can find me at griffinrose.com, GRYPHONROSE. Also at Crossroad Press, Crazy 8 Press, Falstaff Books, eSpec Books. Amazon, obviously. I usually have at least one or two novels coming out at any given time.
Jody Lynn?
You can find me at jodylynnye.com and occasionally on Facebook at Jody Lynn Nye. So drop by and take a look. My books are available through Amazon, Wordfire Press, Bain Books, and a host of others.
David?
You can find me online at davidmack.pro. That's David Mack, MACK.PRO. It's got a list of my full bibliography. There's a press kit page, all kinds of good stuff. And you can buy my books pretty much wherever books are sold.
Gordon?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I might be the only person who doesn't have a site under my own name. You can always track me down on Facebook. I usually, throw out whatever I'm doing recently on there, or just look me up almost anywhere online. It'll show up names show up somewhere. The last name is Linzner, Linzner. So not a lot of duplication there.
Randee?
Hi. You can find me at randeedawn.com. Just look at the name right over here. Randeedawn.com. It's got a list of all the articles that I've written on. A lot of the books and stories that I've written as well are excerpted there. And you can also find links to buy my novel Tune In Tomorrow, which of course is available, and I'm happy to get into your hands.
Adam?
Yes. With tremendous creativity, my website is Adam-Troy-Castro.com without the hyphen. I always have links there to a lot of stories which are available in audio, and a lot of them are available online because I sell a lot to online magazines. My most recent book is The Author's Wife versus the Giant Robot, and I have lots and lots of stories coming out in Analog and in Lightspeed magazine, including one within the next 2 weeks in Lightspeed.
Keith and Wrenn.
What? Where I can find?
Go ahead, Wrenn.
I'm not that easy to find. You're easier to find than I am.
So
I hide behind you. Hide behind you.
You go first.
Well, you know how it's set up, right? Well, I can be found on Facebook. I can be found there mostly under Wrenn Simms. And most people find me through him.
Yeah.
Keith, because Keith's DeCandido.net.
Yes.
We have Whisper.
All things are possible through him.
Hey, I hide behind him.
Yeah. The publisher is whisper.net, WHYSPER.net, or whisperwood.com. That just jumps to whisper.net. That site is still under construction, but you can order the anthology from there. You can find me at DeCandido.net, or just do a Google search for Keith DeCandido. I'm the only thing that's going to turn up if you search for that. Like Gordon, I have a fairly unique name.
Oh. Yeah, I'm not the only thing that shows right now. I'm not the only thing that shows up when you do Wrenn Simms. There's a Wrenn Simms with 1M, who is a beginning artist on Instagram.
Wonderful.
Unfortunately, I have a rock singer.
Yeah.
I'm the only
There's a guy who won the TV show The World's Biggest Loser a few years ago named Michael Ventrella. So if you search Michael Ventrella, you'll see Michael Ventrella, World's Biggest Loser.
I've got a corrupt LA cop who shot Biggie Smalls. I've got a comic book artist whose website I manage, by the way. Another guy who sells antiques in London. I got another guy who was a Middle East policy advisor in the Bush administration. Another guy used to be in Congress in South Carolina. The list goes on and on. It's a wonder anybody finds me with a search engine ever at all.
Which is why I'm grateful for my name. Anyway, you can find me on Facebook, on the thing I insist on still calling Twitter. On Instagram, I'm on Blue Sky. I also write for Tor.com. I've got a YouTube channel, and other cool stuff. Again, Google my name. But don't Google Dave's name, because that'll just confuse you.
Well, and I've tried to, wrangle this end of the world, but as is probably going to happen anyway. I've been your host, Jim Nettles. You can find me at jamespnettles.com, authoressentialsworkshops.com. creatingpros.com, and of course here at ConTinual. And we will see y'all again soon. Go stack up those to be read piles.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Thank you
for hosting us.
Thank you.
Oh, kitties. Everyone show your kitties.